Today's video discusses both intimate partner and sexual violence. Please feel free to turn on closed captions. If you are in an emergency, please call 911. In case you have to change the video immediately, please take the time now to read the description. We have provided random links for specific topics so that you can change the subject matter quickly.
My name is Ruth Williamson. I am a counselor advocate at Center Safe. I'm also the Director of Outreach and Education.
What services do you offer to survivors of domestic violence?
Gotcha. Well, I am really grateful to work for Center Safe, and Center Safe is, our mission and our vision is to empower survivors of domestic violence and work toward the elimination of that violence. So we offer a variety of services to do both of those things, to empower and to eliminate violence. So some of the big key things that we do that address crisis right away, we have a number one thing is we have a hotline that folks can access 24/7. They can call to speak to a confidential counselor. They can work through safety planning. They can talk about their specific situation and what they might need and what barriers they might be facing. We also have emergency shelter. If it's someone is experiencing a lethal situation specifically and they need immediate ways to get out of there, we do provide emergency shelter. And right now we're sheltering off-site. We do have a shelter, the Sylvia Stein shelter, but we are not using that right now because of COVID. However, we do have options available. And then the other of the big three, we offer crisis counseling to individuals that are facing all sorts of different things, whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, whether it's economic abuse, and they're trying to figure out what's my next best step. So those are some of the big three. But we also provide all sorts of different services depending on who the person is, what they need, and what they specifically might need when it comes to support. So we have legal accompaniment and legal counselors that can help work through the difficult process of potentially filing for a PFA. We have what we call our CLRP team, which is essentially a team of lawyers who can help with whether it has to do with divorce, custody, housing, even immigration services, to help with those sorts of things. And we also have transitional housing and rapid rehousing to help folks who are working through that process. And then a whole other list of resources that can be found, especially on our website, centersafe.org.
Before we move on to the next question, can I ask you real quick, for
Yeah.
anybody who might not know, do you mind clarifying what a PFA is?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking that. PFA, it stands for Protection from Abuse Order. And here in Pennsylvania, it's kind of like you've probably heard about restraining orders, potentially, whether you watch, CSI or something like that. Well, a PFA is Pennsylvania's version that helps to provide some civil relief for a person who may be in an unsafe situation. And there are things that can be written into a PFA, for example, custody of children, evicting someone from a home, having guns taken away, which can be a tricky subject. But there are lots of different things that can be written into a PFA to help create some safety for a person while they're moving through the process of whether they're potentially trying to separate, moving through legal services. And at the end of the day, if a person violates that PFA, they can face arrest and criminal charges.
What can a survivor expect when they come to you, and what are the next steps?
Yeah, I love that question because I think the reality is always, for us at Center Safe, it depends. So depending on who you are, what your situation is, there are some things that you can always expect from us at Center Safe. Number one, our goal and our ultimate value in everything that we want to do is we want to empower. So one of the realities that many of us have learned about domestic violence, and one of the things that we see every day, is that power and control is at the heart of these sorts of situations. And a person, when their power is taken away in all sorts of ways, it can be really difficult to believe that there are different possibilities. It can be really difficult to deal with the trauma that's happening. It can be really difficult to make decisions and to find another way. So we really focus on empowering a person. Number one, they are the ones who know about their situation the best. They can make decisions. They are not a person who is broken or who has anything wrong with them. What they're experiencing is not okay. And so we work to empower them so that they can take back the power in their own lives and situations. And then part of that then, as we're working to empower and walk alongside someone, never doing anything for them or making decisions for them, there are lots of different things that survivors can expect as we do that. One of the key things are information and referrals. Whether it's the legal process, whether it's just trying to navigate housing, whether it's trying to navigate the difficult things that happen emotionally, it's really important for someone to feel supported, to know that there's someone with them. And also, because we at Center Safe, we focus on how we can help support survivors, we have access to lots of different information and understand how some of the processes work so that we can help explain things, help survivors if they have questions, so that they can really have informed consent as they go through the process of trying to reclaim and essentially transform their lives. And so when we empower, we support, and at the end of the day, we hope always to make sure that survivors know that we will believe them, that we will support them, and that ultimately they're the final decision maker in any of the things that happen.
Sometimes services are aimed at female survivors, since women remain the group that is most affected by it. Are there any unique services you offer to male survivors or non-binary survivors?
It depends, right? So I think for Center Safe, we've noticed as we've been a part of the anti-violence movement, and we've come a long way. We've been in the community for over 40 years, 46 to say. And we were actually originally, our name was the Center County Women's Resource Center. And that's an important part of our story and how we got started. But one of the really humbling things about the anti-violence movement, especially when it comes to helping to empower survivors of domestic violence, one thing that we are always thinking about and considering is how are we helping to eliminate barriers so that everyone who experiences violence can get the services and the resources that they need. And the reality we faced was that in 2018, when we changed our name, we knew that when we say that we're the Center County Women's Resource Center, that creates a barrier for those who don't necessarily identify as female. And as you stated, and as we know, the reality is that violence doesn't discriminate. And violence affects all of us in a variety of ways. And so changing our name to Center Safe and continuing to make sure that our counselor advocates are trained, that they are learning about and staying up to date with things that are culturally appropriate and relevant. We really hope to help people know and understand that Center Safe, our services are available to all. And so that means that our emergency hotline, anyone and everyone can call the hotline. That means that for shelter, we offer services and sheltering options for those who don't identify as female, for those who might be male, for those who might identify as transgender or non-binary. Wherever and whomever a person is, Center Safe serves people. And we want that message to be known and to be heard. And we hope that as the years continue, we'll continue to learn and find ways to continue to tear down barriers so that all survivors can access the resources that they need. We even have a support group that is specifically for male survivors of sexual and domestic violence. We typically have a female support group, but we work with individuals who maybe identify as non-binary or transgender to help them discern for themselves which group, if one of those makes sense for them, what makes the most sense for them, to which group to join, and if not, what other resources might be available that we could help empower them with here in the community or even online.
What are your policies regarding confidentiality?
Yeah, confidentiality is really important to us in our work because it all goes back to being able to empower and support the survivors that come to us seeking services. Confidentiality for us is a hard word to say, right? But it's key because we truly are a service here in Center County that is free, that is professional, and that is confidential. Anything that anyone says to any of our trained counselor and volunteer advocates remains confidential. We can't tell a police officer who might call. We can't tell a legal system. We can't tell anyone. If you are a person who is seeking services for housing, if you're a person who is seeking services, if you're from an international community and you're having difficulties with that, anything that you say to us is confidential and kept that way. That way, essentially, there couldn't be a subpoena, right, against someone that would call me or someone in who is counseling someone so that their story will be told on a stand. It helps to protect survivors so that they can tell their stories. And one of the key things that makes us a little bit different than Penn State resources, especially the Gender Equity Center and lots of our partners in this work, our confidentiality is a little bit different than people who are here at Penn State. For example, we don't have to worry about or deal with anything that has to do with Title IX and reporting on those sorts of realities, anything that has to do with the Clery Act. Because we're a separate entity from Penn State and because our confidentiality is a little bit different, what students, if you're in a tough situation and you are not sure if you want to disclose to someone on campus, you can disclose to us at Center Safe, and we have no obligation to pass that information on to institutions. So that's always something we want to make sure students know, that we're here, that you can call us, and that our services are just on 140 West Nittany Avenue, which is just about half a mile from campus. So that's sort of how confidentiality works for us.
What other organizations would you recommend to a survivor?
One thing that we know in the work that we do is that domestic violence especially can just be a pervasive destructor in a person's life. So not only do people experience physical abuse, but all sorts of different ways that keep them from being a holistic person. So when it comes to recommending other services, we have a whole book of information and referrals that we've gathered across time and as we've made partnerships. But some of the keys and the top things that we have, we are a Center County United Way partnering organization. And so what that means is that we work very closely with other organizations here in the county, like, for example, Mid-Penn Legal Services, who help to provide legal services for individuals who may have lower incomes or who may not have access to the same financial resources because of the realities of domestic violence. So we have legal services like Mid-Penn. Center Volunteers in Medicine is another great referral when it comes to if someone's facing financial barriers or if they are experiencing the reality of, like, maybe their insurance is tied up with the person who's doing the abuse. They can seek services from Center Volunteers in Medicine at lower cost and potentially not having to go through insurance. There's Center Helps, which helps here in Center County if there are mental health realities that a person is facing. There's so many intersecting stressors, so many intersecting things that have to do with domestic violence. So those are just a few of the resources here in our community. But there are also resources online that we want to make sure that people are aware of too, especially if they're going to be transient here in Center County. If they're a student, if they're a graduate student, won't be here for very long. We want to make sure that people know about, for example, if you're a male survivor, there are organizations like 1in6.org who serve males specifically. If you're an LGBTQ survivor, the Trevor Project and the LGBTQ hotline are really great resources. If you're an individual who identifies as trans, there's the Trans Lifeline. So depending who you are, what you face and what you might need, there are resources available. We even have things like mid-pen literacy. So if you're an international person who is still learning English and still wanting to be a part of community, where you can help to bolster your English skills while also work to be a thriving member of a community, we have lots of resources that we can provide as well. So just ask, really. Yeah.
Are there resources to help survivors seek therapy?
One of the things that we always make sure that we are doing as a part of our services is that we are working with local counselors and those who work in the mental health field. And an important thing that we do is we vet counselors specifically, meaning that we work with counselors and we have a list of referrals that we can offer to folks who are facing domestic violence and working through trauma. We can offer referrals for folks here in the community who may not only have a sliding scale, but who understand trauma and who understand all of the different ways that domestic violence can affect a person and their livelihood and their life as a whole. And one of the things at Center Safe that we've had in the past is we have had a therapist on staff, and we're actually currently looking to fill that position again. So depending on when a person reaches out, we may A, have a person on staff, but B, we also work with therapists to provide referrals. And of course, here at Penn State, we work with CAPS very closely to make referrals, as well as through the Gender Equity Center. So we all sort of work together to provide the referrals that folks need.
What do you think is important for survivors to hear from you?
At Center Safe, we believe very deeply that every person who is affected by violence should always be believed, they should be supported, and that they should have a place and people around them who could help them begin to reclaim their lives and work toward a future that is free of violence, a future where they can be thriving and where they can be members of a community. And so, if nothing else, we hope that survivors hear and know from us that we are here for them. We believe them. We will walk with them. We will be with them to help find services. Be with them to help build the strength and resilience that they need to take whatever next step makes the most sense for them. And at the end of the day, we hope survivors know that we're here and that they're not alone.
Is there anything else you would like to include?
I think one of the most important things, and we might get to this later, but one of the most important things is helping people know that it's really important for all of us, A, to know what resources in our community are available, and B, how we can communicate and support and talk with survivors who are around us. We all know that nearly 75% of us know someone who has experienced domestic violence. So when we walk in a room, if there are 4 of us here, it's likely that one of us has experienced, if not 3 of us. And so what's really important that we hope people know is that Center Safe is here, and that we can always be finding ways to share about resources with others, to say things like, I believe you. I know that Center Safe is here. I can be with you if you want to make the call.
How can a survivor contact your office?
The key ways to get in touch with Center Safe, number 1 is to make sure that everyone in our county knows that we have a 24-hour hotline that survivors can call, and also supporters of survivors, whether you're a family member, whether you're a friend, a supported other, and you can access that number and call 24/7. It's 1-877-234-5050. And it's toll free. Anyone can access it at any time. and some other ways that you can get in touch with us. Maybe you're not ready to make a phone call, and that's okay. Maybe you just need some more information and some more resources. You can always check out centersafe.org. There are lots of different ways that you can learn more about what is domestic violence, what does it look like, what does it sound like, is this maybe what's happening in my life right now? And another great way that you can get in touch with us to learn more about who we are, what resources might be available, is to access any of our social media platforms. Our handle is @CenterSafe, center spelled like the county, CENTRE, CenterSafe. And you can find us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, and then on LinkedIn as well. So if you're looking to find resources, if you're looking to potentially access others who may be experiencing some of the same sorts of things, that's a great place to hear voices, to encourage others to look at and to take part in and just see what's going on in the community. And if all else fails, to make one more connection where domestic violence has really taken that away.